Hey everybody! So it's another Sunday. We're all still on and stay at home, and I've got another Bible lesson for you. So I'm going to do this week's Bible lesson and next week's Bible lesson, and then we'll have a new teacher. We'll do some Bible lessons in May. Today, actually, not only is MG going to help, but also Jasper, and then even Mariah is going to help too with part of the lesson. And so, at the first things first, she's going to play a little game about how you can make things out of a towel. How you can make things out of a towel, right? So it's going to be cool. If you follow along, you could make something out of a towel. She's going to teach you how to make, I think it's ears. Could you make ears out of a towel? I think so. Wait till you see this.
So, do you guys remember when you were little and you'd be in the bathtub and you would like fold stuff with your washcloths all the time?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What are some things that you used to make with your washcloth?
A square, typically.
Yeah.
I usually just fold it up.
You don't remember making the cat ears?
No.
Really?
No.
All right. I'm going to remind you how to make the cat ears. You ready? All right. So lay it out flat first. Very important that you follow directions, because if you don't follow directions, you end up getting something else, not what you were setting out to do, right? So to make cat ears, what you're going to do, you're going to lay it out flat like that. Then you're going to fold one side in and lay it flat, kind of halfway.
This one?
Okay. Looks great. Now take the other side and lay it flat, halfway. So you kind of want the two ends to meet in the middle. Make sense? So you can adjust it when you need to. All right, now here's kind of a fancy part. All right, you're gonna flip it over. So it's right here. Well done. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. You ready? First, you're gonna fold over this way, and you're gonna keep it folded. Good. Now, when you look at the ends, and you may have to get closer to this, Mr. Adam. When you look at the ends, you see how you have the two ends here and two ends here, right? So this end is going to push up against this end, and this end is going to be pushed up against this end. And you'll see the inside part is actually stuck in there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Then you pull it. Ta-da!
Vanessa, let's see yours.
Nice.
Jasper, let's see yours.
Nice.
Hey, can we do it? Can you show us one more time when I'm more close up on you now?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so we lay it flat. And we're
And so, kids, if you get a little towel at home, you can make one just like this.
right. I think Moose wants to try too. But
Oh,
he can't
Moose,
do it.
I don't think your paws are going to be able to fold anything.
Get down off the table. Don't lay them up on the table. All right. So you're going to fold it in half right here. So you're going to let this end be right into the middle, right? Then you're going to take this side and make it right in the middle. And you might have to move it a little bit just to make sure it's even on both sides. Okay? That's step one. All right, step two, you might need a little help with this, but if you hold the ends, you can flip it upside down just like that. And it still stays folded. All right, that's step two. Step three, we're gonna fold that end to touch that end. And you see how you still have the two pieces in the middle here, right? Now, here's the tricky part. You take this corner and you connect it with the back corner. And then you take the other corner and you connect it with this back corner. And then you squeeze them with your fingers like that and you pull it open like that. And now you have kitty cat ears.
That's great. Thank you.
Let's see what Moose looks like with kitty cat ears. Oh, isn't he cute?
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mariah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so whenever Mom says we're on.
We're on.
Okay. So when Mom was teaching you about how to make the cat ears, do you think you could do it again? Like if I asked you to do it right now without her giving you directions, could you do it?
Mm-hmm.
So you think you could? You remember the directions? You don't think you remember the directions?
No.
Like you wouldn't be able to do it?
No.
Like what part was hard?
Like I just feel like I won't be able to. I couldn't remember it.
Like which way to do it?
Yeah.
What other things like do you have to do in life that involve a lot of directions?
School.
What do you mean? Can you more than one word sentences even? Like what do you mean?
Like especially like I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing online school, and like since we don't have teachers like one-on-one telling us what to do, like we're like have to like figure instructions out on our own. So like you have to follow the instructions pretty well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, and like sometimes, like I can't even follow all the directions that I'm supposed to follow. Of the two of you, who's more likely, if you had to put something together, who would read the directions first, and who would just put it together? So, what would you? Would you be the direction reader? Would you read the directions? You just figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm more of a direction reader. Mariah, are you more of a direction reader or a?
I just put it together the way I go,
Well, so you don't read the directions. Okay.
unless I get stuck.
All right, so our story in the Bible is about a couple of directions that Jesus gave, and in fact, you know, in the Bible stories, Jesus is always giving some directions for his followers to follow, and this is about some directions that he gave at the end of his time on earth. So, I before we get to the story, I want to play a little game, and kids at home, you guys can actually play this game. I have a piece of paper right here. If you look on the paper, it says left and right. All right. And then there's a line down the middle. So if you want to pause the video and make a piece of paper, you can play along with us. You just need one side that says left and one side that says right. So you can pause the video if you want to make that. All right. And I'm going to give you, Manasseh, 5 pennies. And Jasper, I'm going to give you, how many pennies do you think you're going to get?
20.
You're going to get 5 pennies.
Close.
Yeah, 5 pennies. All right. So I'm going to read a statement. I'm going to read one statement that's for the left and one statement for the right. And these are statements of good news. Good news. So like you could think that the good news on the left is better or the good news on the right is better. And depending on which one, you put your penny down in the left column or the right column. All right? Are you ready? On the left, I've got ice cream. Or on the right, I hit a home run. Which is better news? All right. Okay. All right. 1 and 1. On the left, we are going to the beach. On the right, we're going to the water park. Okay. Jasper's sticking to the right. And Manasseh's sticking to the left. All right. On the left, we just got a new puppy. On the right, we just got a new kitten. Okay. All right. On the left, we're going to go skiing. On the right, we're going to Disney World. Okay, Disney World kind of wins the day. All right, and the last news, this is dinner news. All right, kids at home, I hope you guys are following along. We're having tacos tonight. Or, on the right, we're having sushi tonight. Oh, sushi in Disney World wins the day. All right, well, so that's our game. And kids, I hope you guys enjoyed playing that game too. You know, we're all about games in Bible class. So let me move this thing out of the way. All right, so our story is about directions, but it's also about good news. It's about some really good news that was going to be shared. And I have my Bible here, and Manasseh, I was wondering if you would read Matthew 28:16. There's an M word, a word that starts with M, in this verse.
Just 28:16.
Mm-hmm.
Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go.
M word. M word? Did you hear M word in there? Mountain. Yes, the M word is mountain. All right. So, in our Bible story, I forgot my markers. So I got my markers. I'm going to use them to tell the story, and in fact, I'm going to tell the story using this drawing here of a little town. All right. So in our Bible story, now you guys remember last weekend was Easter, and the Easter story is about Jesus's
Resurrection.
his death and his resurrection, his death on Good Friday, and then his resurrection on Easter. So this picks up where that story leaves off, all right? So after he died and rose again, Jesus spent time in Jerusalem with his friends. And this is Jerusalem. See, I drew some old-timey Middle Eastern beginning of the first millennia buildings, all right?
It's very specific.
Yeah. Now, for 40 days, Jesus and his disciples ate together, walked together, and talked together. Now, what do you think Jesus wanted his friends to know about him?
That he actually was the Son of God, and that God had planned for him to be crucified and then resurrected.
Yeah, okay. Well, Jasper, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay.
Pretty much that.
Pretty thorough. Well, I think in addition, Jesus also wanted his friends to understand why he had died and come back to life. He wanted them to know that when he rose from the dead, he showed everyone that he's stronger than anything, even death. Now, all people could have their sins forgiven, join God's family, and live forever with him. Now, when the 40 days were over, Jesus asked his friends to meet him on the Mount of Olives. Now, this was a hill near Jerusalem. Jesus had some important things to say to his friends. So here's a little path. Here's a path that's leading out of Jerusalem. Okay. You know what that path needs? Some little bushes next to it. You want to draw some bushes next to it? Just like little bushes. So now, Jesus had some important things he wanted to say to his friends. They did not know it, but these were going to be Jesus' last words to them. As the disciples walked out of the city of Jerusalem up to the hill, they must have talked about many things. You know, when Jesus died, I was so sad. I thought the world would come to an end, one disciple probably said. Yes, but we should have probably realized he would rise again. He told us so many times, another of Jesus' friends might have said. The last 40 days have been the happiest of our lives, Matthew may have said. He'd been a tax collector, so he's pretty good at keeping track of numbers, and that's how he knew there had been 40 days. Now, if you'd been walking up the mountain with Jesus and the disciples, what are some things you might have remembered about Jesus?
How many miracles he did?
How many miracles he did, and some of the pretty astounding miracles he did. What about you?
Same, just everything that Jesus had taught them, since they had been following him.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, finally, Jesus and his friends came to the Mount of Olives. Now, the Mount of Olives was a hill that was just outside Jerusalem, okay? So they climbed this hill. And they all gathered at the top, and you know what? We need some stick figures that would look something like this. Jasper, can you put some stick figures in there? Just a cluster of stick figures. Now, if I'd been there, I would have been pretty excited to hear Jesus teach again. And that's just what Jesus did. He said, "Go and tell people from everywhere all about me," Jesus said. "Show them how to live as part of my family. Let them decide if they want to be baptized. Teach them and let them know about the commands I've given you, and they can choose if they want to obey them." Now, what do you think Jesus' friends thought when they heard what Jesus said? He was basically telling them, go everywhere and tell everybody. What do you think they were thinking? If I told you right now, hey, I want you to leave your home, go throughout the whole world, and when you're done telling everybody, come back here, what would you be thinking?
That would take a lot of time to tell everyone.
Yeah. It would take a lot of time. What would you be thinking?
I guess I'd be thinking that Jesus was just crucified, and I'd be scared to have to do the same stuff that Jesus was doing.
Yeah, I know he got in trouble for teaching everybody, and here he just gotten risen from the dead, and now he's telling you, go out and do the same thing I was doing, but do it everywhere. Even if you don't speak the language. Now, Jesus' friends probably thought that the whole job sounded very hard. He wants us to tell the whole world about him? That's a lot of people. How do we do that? They must have thought. But Jesus knew what they were thinking, and he knew they would not have to do the job alone. He would help them. Look, Jesus said, I'll always be with you. I promise. And that promise is good until the end of time. Jesus explained that he wanted his followers to teach him about him first in Jerusalem, and then in Judea, and then in Samaria, and to keep telling everyone until everybody knew the good news about Jesus. So he wanted them to teach everybody in Jerusalem. And then he wanted them to go out and teach everybody in Judea, and everybody in Samaria, and everybody in the whole world. So, after Jesus said that, he said he would send his Holy Spirit to guide the disciples and to give them power and courage to tell the good news about Jesus. Wait in Jerusalem until you receive this power, Jesus said. Now, after Jesus said this, something astonishing happened. Jesus began to rise up into the air. Now, where's that brown marker? So I'm going to do Jesus like, he was up in the air, and they were all watching him begin to ascend up into the clouds. And they were astonished by this. And in fact, they were still staring when two angels appeared. And the angels said, "Men of Galilee, why are you staring up at the sky? Jesus has gone up into heaven, but one day he will return in the same way you saw him go." And so when the angel said this, the disciples went back down the path, down into Jerusalem to wait. They obeyed Jesus and waited in Jerusalem. And soon the Holy Spirit did come, just as Jesus had promised. Now the disciples had the power that Jesus had talked about. They began telling everyone about Jesus, just as Jesus had said to do. And as they traveled and told people about Jesus, many people joined God's family. Yes, with the power of God's Spirit, when Jesus promised to always be with them, this big job could be done. Now, this was a pretty amazing end to Jesus' life on earth. But Jesus' story didn't end when Jesus went back to heaven. Ever since then, people have been telling others or witnessing about Jesus. Now, when we talk about witnessing about Jesus, there is the way that we witness when we tell people about Jesus' story, but we also witness with our lives, like with the way that we act and the way that we behave. And that's what our Bible verse today tells us about. So let me pull out our Bible verse. Here it is. This is our Bible verse. And Maria, can you get that? Here's our Bible verse today. It says, "You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth." Acts 1:8. So that's our Bible verse. Now, what does it mean to be a witness, guys? What's a witness? Like in court.
Like someone who's like seen it or like was there when something happened.
So if it's a court case, the judge is going to hear from people who actually were there, who saw it, who can speak from firsthand experience. In a lot of ways, Jesus was basically telling his disciples, not everybody is going to understand how I loved. Not everybody is going to understand how I cared for people. Not everybody's going to understand what the Son of God means coming into somebody's life. You've got to go and be my witnesses. You've got to go tell people about me so that people will understand what it means. They can decide if they want to be one of my followers or not. They can decide if they want to be a Christian or not. So that's why it says here, and Mariah, if you can get on the verse one more time here. You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. Now, I'm curious, guys, for you, I have this little activity, and kids at home, you guys can think about this too. I wrote on this paper, home, school, and neighborhood. Now, I'm curious for you guys, in those different settings, what are ways that you can witness about Jesus? Like, how can you let people know about the story of Jesus? It could be, you could be telling them, but you could also show them. There might be ways to show people about God's love.
By being kind and loving.
Where at? Probably only
Everywhere.
at school, not at home, right?
Everywhere.
Oh, okay, so wait, so you're saying being kind?
Mm-hmm.
All right, be kind.
Selfless.
I gotta write that 3 places because Manasseh says it. You could do it everywhere.
What does kind look like?
What's
Helping
kind of
someone.
Yeah, helping someone out and showing love even when it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I know Jasper helped move the trash cans for the older couple that lived next door. That was very kind.
Okay, you were saying selfless. You're right. What does selfless mean?
Like putting other people before you.
And how would you do that at, let's say, home?
You could do chores, school. You could like help a teacher out if like she needs help cleaning something up.
All right, help a teacher.
And in your neighborhood, you could like pick up trash from the ground or something.
All right. Is there when we talk about letting people know about Jesus, I'm curious, is it hard at your school or with your friends to talk about faith? Like, do you ever talk about faith with friends?
Sometimes.
You do? Like, what do you talk about?
Just in general, like what we believe in, but typically it's not talked about too much because I have some friends who aren't necessarily Christian and some friends who don't believe in God at all.
Yeah.
But just like telling them that like if they ever have any questions or if they come to me and say that they like have questions, just like answering them and like being kind.
Do your friends ever have questions about your faith?
Sometimes, but I never like push it on anyone to.
Do you feel like a lot of times you're sort of like trying to explain to people why Christians act certain ways? Like sometimes you're having to explain issues of faith, or you're having to explain issues of politics, like people are upset about how Christians sometimes act.
Yeah, I think a lot of times Christians like are now given a bad rap because of what some other Christians have done. And I have to explain that like not every Christian has those morals or believes those things, and that I certainly don't, and that it's not about the religion as a whole that's bad, it's the people within the religion that are making mistakes and kind of like their morals are being a little clouded.
Right. And I think one thing for me, one of the things I've found, and kids, like this is something that I've always believed, is Jesus reminds us, do not judge. Like, do not judge others. When you judge others, you will be judged as hard as you judge others. And so one of the things I've learned is to be the most Christ-like I can be. I have learned to try to be less judgy of other people, like other people's faith, other people's way of life. I want them to know that the messages I've gotten from Christianity are about kindness and about patience and gentleness and forgiveness and being accepting and loving to the others around me. And that's, I think, a lot of times where the power of the story of Christianity for me is the ability to have waves upon wave upon wave of patience and kindness for others.
It sounds like what MG was describing is that very thing. The way she treats her friends that have questions or believe differently from her.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that that's a good example of one way at school you can be open and informative and be willing to share about your faith. Okay? So kids, you guys can think about at your home and your school and your neighborhood how you can share about your faith, and you would be sort of following Jesus's direction about going into the world and sharing about him. When you act Christ-like, or when you tell people the story of Jesus, you are acting out the Great Commission. You are acting out Jesus's request that we be witnesses to talk about Jesus. So that's our Bible lesson for this week. You learned how to make cat ears out of a towel. We played a fun game with What's the Better News, and we turned out, it looks like left wins because Disney World and sushi is so good. And it was a pretty good story, I think, and my artwork wasn't that bad. And thanks for drawing the bushes, and thank you for drawing the people. So we'll do one next week, and we'll see you then, okay? Thanks, Mariah, for teaching us about cat ears.